Committee of the Whole, May 26, 2020. So please wave at the camera and say present or here. I'll start with Mayor Shantz.
Here.
Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor McMillan.
Here.
Councillor Merlehan.
I'm here.
Councillor Shantz.
Here.
Thank you. All accounted for, and I'm Fred Redekop, and I'll be chairing the meeting. So number one is a notice of any pecuniary interest from any of the councillors or the mayor. Seeing none, we'll go to the second item. Items coming forward from closed session, there is none. Number three is planning public, there is none. Number four on your agenda is presentations, and we have no presentations this evening. Number five is delegations, and there's no delegations. And number six is unfinished business, and there is none. Consent items, there is also none. Anyway, we've got to make this exciting here. So we have staff reports. So Jeff Smith will have our first report on COVID-19 and St. Jacobs BIA, right?
Yes, thank you, Chair Redekop, through you. This report really just notes that the St. Jacobs BIA has requested authority to begin meeting electronically during COVID-19. Staff have worked with them, and we're confident that they can meet the meeting procedures that you set out in your policy. So the draft amendments to the procedure are included in your package, and they would allow the St. Jacobs BIA to begin meeting. I believe their plan is to start meeting next week if you approve it tonight.
Yeah, we're meeting next Tuesday. Yeah. Any questions to Jeff? Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, Chair, through you. It's not about this, but I was wondering, is there something similar to this that I missed for the Elmira BIA, or is that coming soon?
Yeah, through you, Chair, to Councillor McMillan. So we are working with the Elmira BIA for them to begin meeting. Part of their issue is that they've lost their admin support as well. So we're working with them on that. And I have been in touch with the chair. Their plan is to begin meeting hopefully near the end of June. So they can do that. And when they're ready, then we can also authorize them to begin meeting.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Sorry, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Merlehan?
Yeah, through you, Chair, to Jeff. Yeah, when I was reading the report, I was wondering about the other committees, and instead of just having more reports come on the individual groups, why not just include them into here, and so that they can meet at will when they decide to, even with the Committee of Adjustment stuff. Can you tell me the rationale for doing separate reports for all those?
Yeah, to Chair Redekop, to Councillor Merlehan, we are thinking that this will be a sort of a slow rollout, but after the first couple of committees get up and running, I think it'll be a lot easier to let more and more go forward. I guess other than that, if Council wants all the committees to start meeting, the only hold up really is I would say our department. The is a little understaffed right now. We're missing our council committee facilitator. So recruitment is currently ongoing for that position. We've got the job posted. So I think maybe, and we're hoping to have that position hired by the end of June. So I'm hoping around then that we should be able to facilitate more board and committee meetings.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't more or less concerned of people meeting more or anything like that. It was more just the procedural bylaw, instead of having to come back again and going through this and adding another name and voting on it, just, you know, making it so, and then when it happens, it just happens. I can't see anybody being, you know, overly, I don't know, passionate about people not meeting by Zoom. We've been doing it already. That was my only concern. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Merlehan. Any other questions for Jeff? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Do you want me to read it? No? We sort of know what it is. So can I have a mover? Councillor McMillan, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, that's passed. Our second one is the report on, let me see. This report is for the site bylaw, and this is presented by Raj Saini. Raj? Turn on your mic.
Thank you, Chair Redekop. Sorry about that. So the report in front of you really addresses the new site plan approval bylaw and repealing the previous site plan control bylaw. The justification for this is that staff feel that the current site plan control bylaw didn't reflect the requirements for site plan development as per the Planning Act. And so the proposed new bylaw will also give the township more control measures and clarify agricultural related and on-farm diversified uses. And it'll also give us added definitions of altering to a building or structure and substantially increasing the size or usability of a site. Sometimes when sites are changed, grading and drainage can be impacted, and as a result, we want to be able to ensure that our site plan control bylaw addresses these issues so that should the township need, we can use this bylaw to be able to ensure that the site plan, that the site that's developed adheres to the site plan that was presented to us.
Any questions for Raj? Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if this has been a problem yet, or if this is a preemptive measure that we're taking for seeing future problems coming forward.
Through you, Chair Redekop, to Councillor McMillan. We have seen in the past that sites are altered, buildings are added or changed, and as a result, we have seen some grading and drainage impacts to adjacent sites. So our previous bylaw, which was written in 1986, is quite outdated and didn't address these issues. And so as much as it is reactive, we're also trying to be proactive by including our on-farm diversified uses as well to be able to ensure that we have proper measures going forward.
Thank you. I have a question. You mentioned that this is in accordance with the Planning Act. So did the Planning Act change our site bylaw that much? Or what was the reason? Do you have any idea what the reasons were that the Planning Act was modified, or is it just updated?
Through you, Chair Redekop, I guess to you. It has been updated several times. So because our old bylaw was from 1986, there have been numerous revisions to the Planning Act. So as a result, we just want to bring this into conformity and ensure that we're capturing all of the different situations that we see with planning development applications that come through.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Raj? Councillor Shantz?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Redekop. Just wondering, the old one was like one page and four points, and this one is considerably longer. Did we get some information from other areas, or how did we come up with such an extensive one at this point?
Through you, Chair Redekop, to Councillor Shantz. Yes, so we did take a look at about 5 or so different municipalities of a similar size, and also municipalities that do have a large agricultural base. And so we really didn't reinvent the wheel here. We wanted to see what the best practices were and be able to incorporate those into the new site plan control bylaw.
Councillor Merlehan? Or do you have Larry, go ahead. Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do, thanks. At one point, I was asking whether we're going to have a checklist for people that come into the office and want to get information. Has that been followed through on, or where is that, so that people don't get surprised halfway through a project?
So I'm not aware of that checklist. I'm going to defer that to Mark if he can address that.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. That is something that is being worked on internally. I'll say it's very draft. There's a couple things that we're looking at. There's really two concerns. One is process related, and the other one is cost related. And so we had discussed it internally about coming up with a couple of checklists. One to deal with the costs, to try to at least give people a warning of some of the different costs, but also process for sure. So that's something we're looking at internally for sure.
Okay, Councillor Merlehan.
Through you, Chair, to Raj. Can you just talk to us about grandfathering in? So the 1986 bylaw, lots of businesses have gone through and done their site plan through that. Will they have to raise their property standards or whatever if there's something out of line based on that, or is it only if they decide to do something to their property that requires planning? I can't speak tonight. Anyway, I don't know if you got the idea.
So through you, Chair Redekop, to Councillor Merlehan. No, so properties that have previously adhered to the site plan control bylaw, they would have had a site plan agreement that would be registered on title. So that would not, this new site plan control bylaw would not be impacting them. They would not be held to the same sort of standard for new applications.
Okay, thank you.
David, go ahead.
Just because of, through you, Chair Redekop, to Council, just because some of the questions, I would like either Raj or Director Mark Pomponi to speak to, we're aware that there's been concerns in the past with the amount of times that site plan control is put into place and requirements of that for certain developments. I'd like one of them to speak to the issue of how this will be used and how we may be flexible and innovative and creative, especially during these unique times in terms of working with development as best we can.
Sure, and if I can answer that question that David asked, certainly when we look at site plan approval, you'll notice there's a section in there about waiving of site plan approval. Just for experience, in my history, I've probably processed about 1,000 site plan applications. Also, as a consultant, I designed many dozen site plans. And there are times in the past where we actually waived site plan approval for a 50,000 square foot addition to a building. And the reason we did that is because there was no impacts, there was no real concern. So we assess the concerns and the impacts of the development to see whether it's appropriate or not and when it can be waived. And there's certainly a clause within this new bylaw and the guidelines to state that there is an opportunity to waive it. But we would not do that without proper consultation with other departments, such as infrastructure services, to make sure there's no public works permits involved or things like that. The site plan process now is in place. Quite honestly, our bylaw was quite out of date. I started my official planning career in 1987. This bylaw predates my career. So bringing it up to date, it provides clarity and it provides that sort of certainty. When we go through the process, we ask for a number of information. We do a pre-consultation to try to give an explanation of what's expected through the process. Now, in terms of the timing, again, through my experience, is that a lot of the time that has been spent in some of the perceived delays have been with getting information back from consulting companies. Most of the time, that's what the delay is. We have a couple that are internal that we're working on right now. We've gone through and looked at them and assessed it and determined that really the staffing time and the response time is pretty quick. Certainly, I'll go back to my Cambridge days if I can. We had a fairly quick turnaround process for site plan applications. And the process here is very similar. We go through a pre-consultation, plans are submitted, and comments are given back, and then we wait for a response from the consultants to revise their drawings or engineering drawings. They submit it to us, we recirculate it again. Usually it takes a couple of times to nail it down, 3 times or so. But that's we're usually pretty quick at turning them around.
Okay, thanks, Mark, for that update and background. Any other questions for Raj or for Mark on Councillor Merlehan? Sorry.
No question. I'll just move the report.
Okay, the seconder. Have a seconder. Councillor Shantz. Any more discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor of this new site plan control bylaw? Oh, raise your hand. Sorry. Thank you. I think that's passed. Then our third one is the Middlebrook tender. So it has 3. It has 3 parts to it. So Raj, can you, or is it to Jared? Jared, okay.
Thank you, Chair Redekop. Through you to members of council. We've got another tender award report before council. I'd just like to point out a minor error that I did not catch before it went public. In the scheduling component, we had identified the commencement date of July 2nd as the earliest, but no later than August 13th. That should say July 13th. So we are not starting any later than July 13th, which puts our completion date no later than August 7th. So the completion date is correct. It's just the commencement date. So I just wanted to have that noted in the minutes. So before council here is the award for rehabilitation of the Middlebrook Road culvert structure to Jarlian Construction, and to approve GM Blue Plan to do the inspection services and construction administration, as well as to have the mayor and clerk authorize and sign the contract documents. So Jarlian Construction, I personally haven't worked with them. We have staff who's familiar with them, had good success with Jarlian, and GM Blue Plan has also had good success with Jarlian. So we're quite happy with Jarlian becoming the low bid and the one we are recommending for award. I would also note that as council was told back in the Flora Pine tender award, there was some budgets, and we were seeing costing come in over what we were estimating. However, I would state that through the 4 bids we have, I think we have a spread of only about $29,000. So that does indicate that those are real prices, obviously, and it was a very competitive bid process. And we're going to continue to monitor where we are with our budgeting this year. And we have Holm Road on the street now, which is to close. I believe Holm closes June 3rd. We have our paving tender closing May 28th. So we got a lot of work still on the street. And we'll be reporting back to council here in June with those tender award reports. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Okay, can I have a mover of this 3-part motion of the Middlebrook tender award? Can I have someone to move it? Councillor McMillan, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any questions for Jared? Councillor Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Through you to Jared. I ask this question every time. This will be a pre-fed concrete structure like we've used in the past. Whereas when I think of culverts, I think of something that's steel, round or oval, but that's not what it is, right?
That's correct. So through you, Chairman Redekop, to Councillor Martin, this is actually a rehabilitation. So it is an existing concrete structure that we are just doing some rehab work, basically retreating the ends and doing some soffit repairs. But to your point about a culvert, you're right. The culvert that we talk about are large culverts, 3 meters and greater in diameter, and they are typically covered with soil. So there's at least 2 feet of soil. That's really what defines a culvert from a bridge. But in this case, no replacement here. It's not being removed and replaced. It is simply being rehabilitated in situ.
Any other questions for Jared on this? Councillor Merlehan, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Chair Redekop, to Jared. I'm just wondering, the most interesting part of this to me was the bird netting and mostly the reporting about the one nest. And I'm interested in your perspective on that for saving a habitat, which is always good. But we're talking about one nest here and adding about $6,600 to the whole bill. And I'm just wondering the 3-year reporting and the replacement or of the nest to another location. Can you talk to that a little bit? I'm just we've only run into adding bird netting in the past, and this seems a little bit more extensive this time around.
Sure, I will try my best. So through you, Chair Redekop, to Councillor Merlehan. This is a legislative requirement through the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. So there is no getting out of this from a municipality standpoint. This is legislated through, I think we identified OREG 24208. They are threatened, so barn swallows are threatened species. And therefore, when you do encounter a nest, at certain times you are to relocate that nest, and then this is where the monitoring comes in. So that's legislative requirements. So what we flowed through is absolutely legislated, and we deal with that through our consultant, the Boot and Associates. Now, the netting, to your point, I think in my tenure at the township, we've done about 7 structures, and you're right, we've only done netting. So we've not come across any nests. We simply net them so that they don't come and make those nests. And then we get into a bigger delay from a schedule perspective, because you cannot remove those nests when you go to do your construction work through their breeding period. So that really squashes you for an entire year, essentially. So we had come across this earlier on. We were able to do the relocation program, and we have relocated the nest within 1 kilometer of this existing structure. And so that has worked out well for us. And I think the cost, so if you can make temporary structures, we were able to find an existing structure to utilize, so we didn't have to expend any dollars there. Really, I think it was a $200 relocation fee for that, to basically put a cup in for them to start their nest again and have them sit there. But we are aware of, so Wilmot, certainly Township of King, there's lots of municipalities who have had to build structures because they haven't had any adequate habitat within that kilometer radius. That can get quite pricey. So they were on the hook in those cases. I think that if I remember, it was about $7 to $8 grand up to $20,000 for a structure to be built, which is simply a wood structure like a deck with a roof on it that houses the barn swallow nests underneath it out of the elements. So we're fortunate here. I would say that it is the cost of doing business, and we haven't encountered this before in the 7 structures. So we're counter lucky stars, I guess we'd say, that we only encountered 1 nest.
Okay, yeah, thanks for thanks for that explanation. I'm just wondering at the provincial level, like the monitoring for 3 years, is there somebody at the province that is like tracking these barn swallows? Is that a thing that after we identify them, then we follow them around for 3 years? I'm just curious as to the thinking, I guess.
Sure, and I don't think I have a great answer there. I don't know all the rationale there. I certainly, being a threatened species, obviously they're not endangered, but they have that risk of becoming endangered. So we need to do our due diligence, and I think it's just to ensure that because of the relocation process, that they're we're providing some success for those threatened species. Really, is what that is. But that reporting does go to the ministry. Obviously, there will be somebody there that's tracking that and looking after that, and is a requirement for us to report on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jared? Councillor McMillan?
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, the nest has already been moved. So a motion of council that it be Mr. Poupe that goes out personally and moves the nest would be ineffective. Did I get that right?
The nest has been removed through the chairman. This is successfully relocated.
Oh, good. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion of the Middlebrook tender contract, all raise your hands. That's passed unanimously. Thank you. Other business. According to Jeff, there's no other business. Outstanding activity list. Any comments or follow-ups? Any questions? Okay. There's one piece of correspondence from the town of Cambridge, I think. Number 12 on your agenda, number is public notice. There's no public notice. Number 13, notice of closed meetings. There is none. And notice of meetings, right? That was right. Sorry, notice, sorry about that. Notice of motion, there is none, so I have a kind of entertain a motion for adjournment. Councillor Shantz, seconded by Mayor Shantz. She just got in under the wire. All
Can I
those in
make one
favor for
comment?
adjournment? Pardon?
Can I make one comment first?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
You kind of snuck by the other business in a hurry, so I didn't get a chance
Okay,
to
okay,
catch it
sorry,
there.
sorry.
Just
Well,
wanted to let people know that I drove back Snyder's Flats Road today, and 35 cars were back there parked illegally. And just wondering if we're doing anything about that, or whether we're closing a blind eye to it, or what's happening there.
Clerk Hummel?
I can answer that. So we have done some ticketing out there. I have seen tickets go through. We're not out there every day. And we also have been asked by the owner of the gravel pit if we would authorize their security officers to give them ticketing authority. That is going to be a council decision whether we want to do that or not. They're out there much more often. I'm just waiting for the CAO to have a discussion with the GRCA this week. And once I know how that goes, then I may perhaps give to ask you to give that authority to the security officers.
Councillor Shantz?
Is the GRCA getting involved as well, or are they walking away from it?
Mr. Brenneman, go ahead.
So late this afternoon, I had a conversation with the CAO for the GRCA, Samantha Lawson. No, they have stepped up to the plate now in terms of hiring their own private security. They don't have some, one of the things that they've discovered as part of this COVID-19 is that they own a lot of properties. And one of the things they've not been deep on in terms of depth is having staff resources for enforcement related type of activities. So they were quite happy and pleased that we were able to step up initially, and that going forward, they're prepared certainly to enforce things with a private security firm. However, I think that will be balanced against the fact that they're going to start to reopening more and more places, including Snyder's Flats. So I think, ultimately it will be how do we wish to collaborate with the GRCA, and as Val Hummel, our Director of Corporate Services, has noted, ultimately we'll be coming to council with respect to background on whether you're comfortable with designating a private security company to also provide enforcement services for us in that area, basically as a result of complications on not our property, but GRCA property.
Yes, thank you. It's just more of an observation, just to find out some details. So thanks for that information.
Okay, but Snyder Flats isn't open, GRCA?
I believe if it's not open, they're planning to reopen it this weekend.
Okay.
If not already open.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So we have a motion and a seconder to adjourn. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. I'll